If you are looking for an easy and simple way to incorporate mixed media on a scrapbook layout, then you want to stay tuned. In this video, I'm going to show you how you can make mixed media collages using acrylic paint, a Gelli plate, and much more. Next on the Victoria Marie YouTube channel. Welcome back to the Victoria Marie YouTube channel, where I feature all things scrapbooking and crafting. If that's something you enjoy, make sure you hit the subscribe button. When you do, click the bell indicator. That way you'll be notified each and every time a new video is posted. So if you enjoy the look of mixed media on a layout but are a little intimidated to incorporate it in some way, I've got a really fun technique that you can try today to incorporate mixed media on a layout. So notice those layers behind my photo. Those are mixed media collage layers, and today I'm going to show you how you can create that using some simple tools. You don't need anything expensive to do it, and it's very, very easy and a really cool way to add mixed media to your pages without it being overwhelming. So to begin this project, I'm using my Gelli plate from Gelli Arts, and what this is a gel printing plate, and it is exactly how it sounds. It is a gel material, and these are roughly anywhere between $15 to $20 depending on where you purchase it from. Now, do you need this in order to create mixed media collages? Absolutely not. In fact, you can do this same technique, just slathering some paint and products on a page without the Gelli plate. But I love using the Gelli plate because I like creating mono prints, and that's typically what Gelli plates are used for. I also have some rollers or some brayers here that I'm going to apply the paint medium, which is the medium I'm going to be using today. They come in a variety of different styles. There's also some that have texture, so I'm showing you that one there. And then also, I'm going to be using some standard student grade paint. You can pick this up at any craft store, relatively inexpensive, for a little jar of paint there. Typically for these projects, I like to start with 3 colors, although you can layer in more colors as needed, or as you want rather. I'm also going to add a little bit of texture to this collage. So I'm going to pick up this texture paste, and texture paste comes in a variety of styles and colors. You can even tint your texture paste with a variety of mediums. Today I'm going to be using some white texture paste, but I'm showing you this texture paste. It's a gold metallic paste, just as an example of a different variety of texture paste. And that just adds a little bit of dimension and something different to your collages. Now, to add even more interest to your collages, you can use stencils. And I have tons of stencils in my stash, and I imagine many of you do too as well. Notice these stencils have been well loved because I'm always too lazy to wipe my stencils off if I'm using paint especially. You do want to wipe them off if you're using your texture paste. But that's going to add some really fun pattern to your collage. So we're going to get started with just this basic technique. Of course, you can do all kinds of really cool techniques. In fact, if you follow Gelli Plate or Gelli Arts on Instagram, they show a variety of different techniques that you can do with the Gelli Plate. Again, you don't need this particular tool, but I'm going to use it because I do want to create some fun mono prints. Now, make sure to come back on Friday because I'm going to show you how to make this card project using some of the scraps from the mono prints that I've made a couple of days ago. So to get started, you want to pull your Gelli plate from its plastic shell, and that's where you're going to store it as well. And there is an acrylic sheet on both sides of the plate. You're going to pull off one side of the acrylic sheet, and that's where you're going to apply your paint. And notice I'm applying it on different parts of the Gelli plate. You're going to take one of your rollers or your brayer, and you are going to roll out your paint, applying a kind of a light pressure. You don't want to mix and muddy the colors too much, but just kind of apply it where it's all spread out. And then take your substrate, whatever that may be. It could be cardstock, it could be deli paper, it could be newsprint, and then you are going to pull your print. And look how cool that looks. I just absolutely love it. Now, you do have some medium left on that Gelli plate. You don't want to waste it, so grab another piece and try to get as much of that paint off as you can. Now, acrylic paint will dry very fast. There's no need to oversaturate it, but just pull the remaining of that and you can use that as fodder as well. All right, so next up I want to add a little bit of pattern to my mono print. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add some more paint. You can use the same 3 colors you started with. I always recommend starting with 3 coordinating colors based on your project, and then you can add in coordinating colors. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my brayer on my little extra sheet there, and that's going to add a lot of fun texture and dimension. I'll continue to use that. I'm going to add in some paint again on my Gelli plate, just rolling it out. Notice I'm using one to roll out the paint and one to help press the paint into the paper. So I usually always have a clean one. I'm going to lay my stencil down. I'm just going to press my paper right into that stencil. And what's going to happen is it's going to pick up that pattern. It's going to yield a really cool design. So I pull that and look how fun that is. And you can continue to layer with different stencils, with different paints. You can add different texture. Notice that that stencil left a print on my Gelli plate. So I'm just going to bring my clean roller over. Just roll that right over that page that I already created, adding again another layer. You can bring in all kinds of texture tools and things that you have around the house that can create texture as well, like bubble wrap and all kinds of fun stuff that you can create texture on that and pull a print. Now, when you're first doing this technique, it may seem like your prints are a hot mess, and in fact, it's not. These prints will yield all kinds of interesting patterns, and each print will be different, which is so fun about this technique. So keep going, keep playing, keep layering until you achieve something that you really, really like. Now, you want to add a little bit of texture to your print, then consider some texture paste. And so I'm using some basic light body texture paste. You can use heavy body texture paste, whatever you have on hand. And I'm just kind of spreading this around my mono print. And there we go. That's going to dry, and that's going to add a whole lot of texture and interest to this mono print. You do want to make sure that you clean your tools and your stencils after you use texture paste. So here's some examples of some leftover remaining pieces that I'm actually going to be using on today's project. Notice the texture paste there, that gold texture paste, the white texture paste on the other one. Each pattern is different. Here's one where I used a floral stencil and some texture paste. I love all that dimension, all the color. It's just so much fun. So what can you do with these prints once you're done with them? Well, you can cut them up and use them in projects. You can use your dies and your punches. You can create cards, cut some card panels down. You can cut these into sections that you can use on a scrapbook layout, which I'm going to use today, or what I'm going to do today. So lots of fun things you can do with your mono prints. So let's go ahead and dig right into the project. So for this layout, I'm using the Vicki Boutin Color Study collection. And the reason why I chose this is because Vicki's collections tend to skew more mixed media. They're very easy to use for mixed media layouts because a lot of her papers already have that style. And her collections are super colorful. So for this project, I am documenting my wife's 17th year as a college professor. And of course, this year is, or even last year, was unlike any other years in her profession for sure. So I wanted to make sure that I documented that. So I have a piece of green pattern paper that I took from the Color Story paper pad, along with these little strips here that I cut from one of the pattern papers. I'm just going to have an anchor there, create an anchor at the bottom so it doesn't feel like my elements are falling off the page. And then I'm going to bring in my mixed media collages. Now these of course were cut down from their paper. The paper was measuring about 8 by 10, and I used some mixed media paper for this. In the demonstration I used just regular white cardstock, so either way you're good to go. So I'm showing you some of the pattern there and the dimension, again using acrylic paint and stencils and texture paste to create those wonderful patterns. And you're going to see more of this in my video on Friday, where I take the scraps of this collage. Actually, I made 3 collages, and I took some of those scraps to create some really fun mixed media collage cards. So stay tuned for that on Friday. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to figure out how I want to position these pieces behind my photo. Now, I love using mixed media on a layout, but I don't always want to apply product directly to the background of my layout. And when I first started out scrapbooking and trying out mixed media, it was intimidating. So I learned over the years to take this particular technique and play with it in sort of a smaller scale. So that means for me creating elements with mixed media products that I can then add to my layout without actually committing to putting it directly on my layout. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to show you this technique, because I know a lot of you want to do mixed media, but maybe you need an option to do mixed media light or mixed media in a different way, where you can add mixed media to a layout without feeling too intimidated or too overwhelming. There are so many different techniques and so many different products out there to play with. This is a really good way to start as you're building your skill. Now I have those pieces of the mixed media collage surrounding my photo. Of course, they're acting as a layer for my photo, or photo mat, if you will. I do want to pop it up on some foam. I went ahead and adhered all those pieces together with washi tape because it makes it easier to move it around in one unit and work with it in one unit, just in case I wanted to reposition it in some way. I do want to add a bit of height to that, so I'm going to add some foam from scrapbook.com. And I'll make sure to post links to available products in the description. So I'm going to go ahead and position that to the left-hand side of the layout. I went ahead and pre-printed my journaling on vellum. That's a technique that I love so much. It gives the appearance that you've typed directly on your scrapbook layout. Now I'm going to go ahead, before I start popping on any embellishments, I want to work on my title. So I'm taking some sticker fonts that coordinate with the Color Study collection. These are from Thickers, and I'm putting down the word that says amazing. Then I'm going to take another set of Thickers and I'm going to spell out the words year 17. This particular thicker set's called Navy. Now it is a dark navy blue color. It doesn't look that way. It looks black on screen. It actually looks black in person too. So I'm okay with it being navy blue. No problem. So I'm going to position year 17 right under the amazing, and I'm taking advantage of how that word amazing is curved. And I think this looks somewhat editorial. I really, really love that. So here's a quick tip. If you want to add some interest to your titles, use more than one font style. As you can see here, the word amazing is more of a scripty style. And then of course I pair that with the other thickers that are more of your standard font style, and it looks so good. Next up, off camera, I created some vellum embellishments using some stamping ink. I think I want to say that was archival ink that I used, along with these stamps from the Color Story collection. Some have some flowers, and then of course the little pie chart there. This is a very easy way to incorporate stamping on a layout without actually stamping on your layout. I know some of you are probably a little hesitant because what if you make a mistake and you stamp on the layout? It's a whole thing. Well, you can stamp on a different substrate and just add it to your layout. So I have the two. I have a flower and of course a little pie chart there at the top, and then mimic that again at the bottom to add a little bit of cohesive imbalance. Then I have this black label. I'm trying to add in more of a horizontal element to that cluster, so I'm going to add one at the top. This is just a grounding element for aesthetic purposes. I'm not going to actually put anything on those labels. And then next up, I have a few more little embellishments that I pulled from this collection. I have this die cut that says I can do all things, and I thought this was important for this particular story given all of the challenges that many educators are facing as they return back to the classroom this year. And so I thought that would be appropriate for this layout. I'm also making sure that my little vellum die cuts that I need with the stamps are positioned the way that I want. I'm going to go ahead and start tacking stuff down using a little bit of foam for that die cut there. And I love how the colors just work so well. In fact, I created the collages before I knew I was going to do this layout. And so when I was picking elements for the layout, I wanted to make sure that I coordinated the colors of the materials, the pattern papers, and so forth with the colors in my little collages. And of course, you could do the reverse of that too, or the opposite of that. You could start with your scrapbook materials first and then select the paints and the mediums that you want to create your collage. Okay, so with that tacked down, I'm going to reach for the chipboard stickers, again adding some more dimension. This is again from the Vicki Boutin Color Study collection. I will post links to available products in the description if you're interested in this. I'm going to add a little bitty butterfly there, pop him up with a tiny bit of foam dimension. There was another butterfly that I put at the top of the layout that also has some green and a little bit of a metallic gold there in the center. And then I'm going to pop another one down at the bottom, and creating a a visual triangle of interest from the top right all the way down to the top or to the bottom right. I'm going to add a label that says do your best. And then I thought I was going to add another gold label, and I forget what that says, but I decided to reach for a blue label that says it's all good. So far this semester, she's only been back for, I guess, going on 3 weeks now, and there had been some hiccups the first week, but I think everything is kind of balancing out. All right, so at the top, there's another label that says, yes, girl, yes. Some encouragement there. And then more dimensions coming with some little tiny puffy stickers. I'm always kind of challenged to use these elements, so I try to use them as little finishing pieces. So I'm going to put a couple there at the top. Those are stars, and then some to the side by the little green butterfly, and then at the bottom, they're stars and hearts, and they are outlined in black, which I think is fantastic. I'm going to reach for the Color Steady sticker sheet. This is a multi-sheet sticker pack. I'm going to put a little paper clip there. Anytime that I'm documenting something about work or professions, I like adding in like office supply images if I have them available. And then I wanted to add something to my layout with direction. I haven't used arrows on my layouts in quite a while, so I'm returning back to the sticker sheet where I pulled that word amazing from. That's a Puffy sticker. I'm going to add this gold puffy arrow to the top, and I think that adds a really fun level of not only dimension and shine, but also a little bit of direction on the layout and some movement. So there we go, a completed 12 by 12 layout using mixed media collage fodder that of course we created using a Gelli Plate. You don't need a Gelli Plate to do this, but it definitely comes in handy whenever you're doing mono printing. You can do mixed media on a layout as simply as this, and as your skills develop, and maybe you want to branch out a little bit by adding mixed media directly to the background, whether you use solid paper, you can also use pattern paper too, not only to create your collages, but to also create really cool mixed media backgrounds. If you have any questions about this technique, make sure you post it in the comment section below. Be sure to follow me on Instagram so you can see images of this particular project. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. When you do, click the bell. That way you'll be notified each and every time a new video is posted. I'll see you in the next video.